Chris Haynes, senior NBA insider, soon to launch Haynes Briefs YouTube show. Haynes Briefs. How about a round of applause for that, Chris Haynes? I like that. Haynes Briefs. Haynes Briefs. Haynes Briefs.
Talking about the Haynes report.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Of course. I remember that shit.
Another episode of the Haynes Briefs show here on YouTube. Thank you again for all of you who are subscribing, commenting, and sharing this new channel and this new platform. So I'm having fun doing this. I'm having fun, coming up with new creative ways to service you NBA fans. So thank you for what you've done to this point. Also, for those who want us on instant notification, sign up for that so you can be notified instantly when we drop a new episode. So today's episode is going to be on the Suns again. I know I was just on the Suns not too long ago, but they're still in the news and they're still relevant and they have some big decisions to make ahead. So there are about 4 topics I want to touch on with the Suns, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. There's the play-in tonight. We got the playoffs starting tomorrow. So let's go. It's time to get into this. So number one, the Phoenix Suns had Matt Ishbia and front office executives James Jones and Josh Bartelstein at the helm for exit interviews yesterday. And Matt Ishbia talked about the fact that it was a disappointing season. He made no bones about it. He made it clear that it was a season to forget. 36-46 with the payroll that they had with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. There were championship expectations. They didn't live up to them. They didn't even come close to living up to them. So they fired Coach Mike Budenholzer, and he talked about there being changes, major changes on the way. And so that's kind of what I want to kind of get into when you're talking about that. So obviously they didn't like the style of play. The communication was an issue. I talked about that as well in my previous episode with the coaching staff, particularly Mike Budenholzer. But one thing that I do know, one thing that I was told is that the Suns want to transition. They want to move away from the model that they've been going after for the previous 2 years of accumulating star talent, star players, and then trying to see if it can mesh on the court. They want to move away from that, and they are going to move away from that. So the purpose right now and the goal moving into next season is to accumulate defensive-minded, tough players. They want to play a defensive-minded, grind-it-out type of a game. They want to have a product on a court that fans can appreciate, because you go into, I read the comments. I see what Suns fans are saying about their teams after games, and, you can make the case that this team probably quit on Budenholzer early on in the season, and you can just see it in their play, just lethargic, uninspiring play. And so the new ownership group, Matt Ishbia, he came in and he wanted to bring a championship immediately, ASAP. That's one thing he talked about as soon as he took over as the owner of the team. But I think right now he's looking at it and saying, like, you know what, it's very important that they have an identity and a culture that is very similar to the population of Phoenix and the way that the people in Phoenix move and go about their day. And he talked about that in his press conference, just having a team that's going to mirror the community. And so, it's just, you look at that team and it's just the team that they just had this past season. It just didn't get it done. And, it was definitely deflating for the fans to watch that type of a product. So they're trying to, and they're going to assemble a team. They're going to try to bring in guys who are defensive minded, are tough, and it's going to be a team that win, lose, or draw, that you're going to be proud to say that you watched that game, and you're going to leave that game believing that those players gave their all. And that's something you couldn't say for this previous team. So that's going to be the new identity of this team. That is what they're going for. Hard-nosed, defensive-minded, tough, rugged team. So part 2 is going to be about, my topic number 2 is going to be about the coaching search. So now, Budenholzer talked about the identity, the culture that they're trying to instill. And so that's going to play a factor into how coaches even are going into the interview process with the Suns. Because typically, let you guys know, so typically a coaching candidate comes into the interviews with the team, and they're trying to sell the team. They're trying to sell the organization on their philosophy, on the way that they do things, on how they've been successful, on what has worked for the players that they've coached years prior, and how this philosophy can work with the players you have on your roster. And so that's still going to be very similar. But the difference is that now you have an organization telling you what they want, telling you what they're looking for. So it's going to be up to the coaches to possibly kind of alter their approach and how they're going into this interview. And for coaches who are already viewed or deemed as defensive-minded coach, you're probably going to have a leg up, because now you can talk about how do we implement that. You can talk about how something like that is executed. You can talk about what players you need to try to bring that scheme to life, or best utilize that scheme. So, it's going to be coaches going to have to kind of alter their plan of approach to try to make sure they're speaking the same language as the Suns organization. And so that's going to be a little bit different. It's one thing if you're an offensive-minded coach, but, even if you're an offensive-minded coach, you probably want to tell them, hey, you know what? But I got a defensive-minded guy who's one of the best in the industry who I can bring on as my lead assistant. And so anyways, you just have to probably prepare a little bit differently. And so I was told that the Suns will start reaching out to candidates in the next few weeks, and they're going to start requesting permission to speak with some assistants out there in the next few weeks. And during this time in the playoffs, it's kind of, you got to kind of be sensitive to teams that are still in the playoffs. It's kind of a tricky situation right there. But, so in about a few weeks, they'll start requesting interviews and asking permission to speak with assistants out there. Now, my third topic, KD, Kevin Durant. Now, the coach will have some impact on what happens with Kevin Durant. And the reason why I say that is this. It is very likely that Kevin Durant will be moved this summer. That is likely. However, if the Suns can find a coach that they're looking for, the coach that fits their identity, the coach that's going to fit the culture that they're trying to build, right? A grinded out coach, hard-nosed, somebody who can communicate effectively to the players. If they can find that coach and find a coach that is largely respected by the players in the league, there can be a possibility in which Kevin Durant is still a member of the Suns going into the 25-26 season. Now, sources did relay to me that Chauncey Billups, had he not re-signed with the Portland Trailblazers, he was going to be a primary target of the Phoenix Suns. And he is somebody, you talk about a grinded-out coach, defensive mentality, championship player, going into the Hall of Fame. He's somebody who has the respect of players around the league. He's somebody who has the respect of stars around the league. So if he would have gotten to the fold, things probably would have went a different way as it pertains to Kevin Durant. So the coach is going to play a role. It's going to factor into what happens with Kevin Durant. And a name I want to throw out there, depending on what happens in his situation. Willie Green, head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. So Joe Dumars is taking over. He's president of basketball operations over there. So is he going to keep Willie Green in the fold, or is he going to give him a year to evaluate? So that's a situation you need to monitor right there. If Willie Green comes into the fold, if he becomes available, he's somebody who's respected around the league. Players have a lot of respect. He's a stand-up guy, Willie Green. You can't find anybody that can say one bad thing about him, and he can coach his ass off. That's the simple plain fact of the matter is as it pertains to Willie Green. So that's somebody to watch out for. So again, Kevin Durant likely to be on the move, but depending on who the Phoenix Suns hire as the head coach, that could factor into things and probably change the trajectory of some situations. So lastly, my fourth topic I want to touch on is Bol Bol. Now, he is somebody who rival executives believe has untapped talent. He's 25 years old, started playing basketball late, and he's somebody who, you look at the wing, the length that he has, you look at his size, somebody like Wemby, you just can't believe he can do things with the basketball that way, and with the way he plays and how tall he is. He plays like a guard. He can shoot the ball. He can do it all, right? He's thin, but hey, a lot of people are thin. So he's somebody who didn't get much burn with the Phoenix Suns. It's kind of been that way throughout his career. You see spurts of what he can do. But I want to throw this out there. So, he didn't get into the rotation till February 7th. And he was in the rotation for about a month under Coach Mike Budenholzer. His last day in the rotation was March 12th. But I want to tell you, in that February month, the month of February, right? He averaged 12.5 points a game, shot 54% from the field, 38% from three, 4.7 rebounds in 20 minutes a game. That's pretty good considering he's playing with some star players, right? So let's get back to that March 12th, which was the last day that he was in the rotation. March 12th, that was a game the Suns were playing the Houston Rockets in Houston. It was when Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee got into that altercation, that little scuffle they had where they were on the ground, right? And so you know what happens when scuffles, they come about. Players start to run and try to pull other players off of one another, try to intervene, right? So if you remember looking at that incident, Bol was actually in the game during the time. So when Mason Plumlee and Steven Adams got into it, you see Bol in the background shooting layups. He didn't run to the incident. He was shooting layups. League sources told me that Coach Budenholzer was irate when he saw that. When he saw that Bol did not run to the defense of his teammate and try to help out and try to intervene in some fashion. Bol was in the background shooting shots, shooting layups. And that ticked off Coach Budenholzer. And so after that game, Bol, after being in the rotation for over a month, after that game, he was out of the rotation for the remainder of the season. There was only 6 games left, but right after that game, he was out of the rotation. Now, listen, did the fact that he did not go over there to help, did that factor into him getting out of the rotation? I think you can. I think just by the evidence right there, I think it's safe to say that had something to do with that. But yeah, I was told Coach Budenholzer was very irate. But with that being said, we don't know what the future holds for Bol Bol in Phoenix, but he is a player that teams still believe can be unleashed and potentially turn into a star level player. So, watching his situation over the summer as well is something that needs to be monitored. So there's going to be more, but the Phoenix Suns are definitely interested. And I know I've spent a lot of time on the Suns, but they're a team that's that's in the news quite frequently. And I don't think that's going to change over the next few months or so. But, this is going to conclude this Haynes Brief show on the Phoenix Suns. And again, the 4 things that I touched on was the identity and the culture. They want to instill defensive minded players. They want to instill some toughness. They want to change the way that they play. They want to make it a game suitable for fans to be proud of them, right? Number 2, the coach. The coach is going to have to align. His coach's philosophy is going to have to align with what the Phoenix Suns organization is trying to instill. The defensive toughness, defensive principles, holding guys accountable, being an effective communicator. So, it's going to cause for some coaches, potential head coaches, to come in and alter their approach. Number 3, KD, the coach will have will play a factor in what the Suns ultimately do with KD. Again, it's likely KD is moved over the offseason, but depending on the coach, if the right coach is brought in that can implement the principles and the identity that the organization is looking for, and on top of having the cachet and the respect of major players around the league, then you can see some things going a different trajectory if they get that guy. And number 4, Bol Bol, somebody who teams feel still has untapped talent to be unleashed. And I'm just giving y'all some background on, what led to Bol getting out of the rotation during the later stages of the season. So all that more here on Haynes Briefs. Again, I touched on the Suns before with coaching candidates. If you want to know some of the coaching candidates, I touched on that on the previous Haynes Briefs show. So go back and check that episode out if you want to know who are some of the candidates are, who are some of the coaches that the Suns will reach out to get some interviews done. So, that and much more here on the Haynes Briefs show. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting and sharing. Please put us on instant notifications to get us right when we drop an episode. Thank you. Got the play-in. Got the playoffs. It's that time of year. Appreciate y'all. Take care.